This is Michael Mirdad, and it's time for our spiritual insights. A lot of you ask me, what books to read, what teachers to pursue, and so on. So let's talk about that. Spiritual teachings. And some of you have history in kind of what we'll call more traditional metaphysics or spirituality. It could be systems like of yoga. It could be Eastern, like Yogananda. And it could be mystical, could be secret teachings, mystical groups. Sometimes there's there's channeling groups. There's so many different things a person can study. But really, when it comes down to spiritual teachings, and then let's subtitle that, "Where should I go from here?" Something like that. We make up these topics as I go. I mean, it just kind of happens, right? So that's what we're doing. So where do we take it? Where do we go from here? So no matter what you've studied, this is really cool as it's coming to me, so I'm getting kind of excited here. But spiritual teachings, if you say to yourself, I'd like to know where to go from here, then it's sort of haphazard, even though it sounds rational, reasonable. It's actually haphazard, because if you say, well, where do I go from here? Well, it depends where you want to go. If you say, okay, I want to be wiser, that's different than reaching Christ consciousness. If you say, I just want to learn more about holistic health, that's different than spirituality. Even though they all overlap a bit, it is different. So let's go to the main point first, sort of the end of the story first. What is it you want? Think about this. What is it you want? Oh, I just want to study all kinds of things, eclectically. Cool. Then your goal, being eclectic studies, already allows the curriculum to get to that point. It's kind of like lining up, two sites. They look like one. Really, they're one and several in between, depending on how many. And then your goal. So you line your sights and you say, where I want to go is just eclectic studies. Now, it doesn't matter how many zillions of things you got in between here and there, you're going to reach your goal. You want eclectic, study eclectic, you've already reached your goal. It'll just keep honing in and improving on the goal, more and more and more eclectic, but that's all you asked for, so you got it. If you say, I want to really go to the best, okay, that's better, that's good. They're all good. They're all really, any route of spiritual studies is great. When I started studying, I didn't know either, at whatever age, teens, what is my goal? Well, nobody told me there was a goal. Nobody told me that there could be a goal. So I really, to some degree, studied a little bit eclectically, but there weren't schools and things so much, but I would just kind of see whatever crosses my path, because there were only a handful of books out there you could find easily. So I would just, whenever I saw something of spiritual nature, it could be Taoism, little booklets, Lao Tzu, it could be favorite sayings, of Confucius. It could be famous quotes from spiritual people, whatever. You'd find those once in a while, new and used bookstores, and I would just devour those because that's all there were. But if you think about it, if I really, really am honest with you and clear about how I'm describing my studies, I wasn't told about a goal, but I knew there was one. So the one that this kid, teenager, knew was simply God. Now, I would have loved if it was a little more specific and defined, but you don't have to be. When you're talking God, so it was good enough. But I just knew it was God. So I had a goal, which is anything about God. So that's very cool. But if I were doing it differently, I would fine tune it just a little bit more. I would take those sites and I would just focus them a little bit more if I were to go back and start over from my teens. I would just fine tune it a little bit more. I can't say that I studied anything that was out of focus. I really can't. I can't say I have a lot of regrets or anything like that in terms of, oh man, I got in this tangent of such and such a study and it was really a waste of time. It all comes in handy, actually, for me. The different things I might have looked at the time. So I feel good about that. But still, even if it was 1 degree off for a moment, it's enough for me to be able to tell you if any of you are off 1 or more degrees. I can still talk about what to do to improve that. And so, all that said, spiritual studies, where do you go from here? Yeah, man, I would really like to know, I like listening to Michael Mirdad on the YouTube, or I like his books, and then, oh, I also like this and I like that. Okay. So, what is it your goal? What is your goal? Eclectic? Great. Eastern wisdom? Great. If you're studying Eastern wisdom and you really, really want to become proficient, a disciple of Eastern wisdom, then your shelves in your home should be apparent to anybody. And that's one way to test yourself. Are you studying the things that are consistent, in alignment with, congruent with where you say you want to go? Now, see, the average person says, I don't know really where I want to go. I mean, I just like spirituality. Well, that's great. I'm telling you that students on the path are down here saying, there are people that aren't even on the path at all. They're just in oblivion. But people that get on the path, they go up a notch to a place of, yeah, I love studying spiritual stuff. That's cool. But there's another level you go to when you go, not only do I study something, I know where I want it to take me. That is called mastery, that level of consciousness. Masters are efficient, for lack of a better word. And so what we do as living masters is, I don't want to just do things horizontally. I want to go vertical and get somewhere. At the end of the day, if my day or year or life starts here, when I'm done with this day or year or life, I want to be somewhere else. Horizontal, look what happens. I was here, and then I was here, and now I'm over here, but you're still nowhere higher. You have just more stuff that you know. And so I want to go somewhere with this. And okay, I got it. And it could be Eastern studies. At least there's a notch up. It may not be the highest notch, or it may be, depending on, that's between you and God, but are you getting it? I mean, if you really get anything, spiritual study, and truly integrate it, you're going to go several notches up higher. So what is it you want to study? Well, it depends where you want to go. Well, if we can agree, if someone watching this kind of a program doesn't really want to stay horizontal anymore, and if you do, I think it's great. Study and enjoy eclectically, and wow, this is kind of cool. This is, to me, I sort of say philosophers are really wonderful, historically speaking. I mean, my God, the wisdom, Thoreau and Emerson and so on, just amazing. But sometimes, historically, philosophers, I'm talking about the type that come out of academic places, not philosophers that are actually spiritually enlightened and therefore they're sharing deep insights. I'm talking about the ones that ponder everything, not share what they know philosophically and sharing it philosophically. I'm talking about the ones that, I wonder if, and it's possible this, and maybe that, and then they often end their, often too lengthy monologues with, but perhaps we'll never know. That to me is a worthless philosophizing. I mean, just don't even waste my time, because we didn't go anywhere. So I think philosophy is fantastic, but it's got to go somewhere if it's going to impress me, because again, mastery versus human. So mastery is, again, any of us who say, no, wait a minute, I want this to end up somewhere higher. Even our relationships, they really should end higher. And that doesn't mean you're putting it on your partner. Hey, can you just make sure you take me higher, or else I'm going to give you walking papers. It's, I decide if it can take me higher. I'm the one who can extrapolate and extract value from anything if I'm in mastery consciousness. So Eastern studies would be great. You could say, I want to study clairvoyance, psychic stuff. In other words, astrology, palmistry, numerology. I'd like to study cool things like that, and I think it's great. So then what is your goal? I want to be knowledgeable in terms of being a psychic. Okay, cool. Now you will become hopefully proficient, like a master of the psychic sciences. And I think it's just fantastic. Now, another person could say, I want to study, again, philosophies. Great. What philosophies? Well, Plato and Socrates and so on and so on. Another person, mythology. Whatever you're studying, that's fine. You can have a niche somewhere, or you can have more than one. But really, if you're on the path, you're going to find out that even if you become proficient in 1, 2, 3, 4 topics, 5, the more you do study, if you study deeply, sincerely and deeply, you're going to start going, wait a minute, that one overlaps with that one, and that one kind of connects with that one. And that one's very synchronistic with that one, and that one is very congruent with that one. You're going to start finding that, like the hands, they might all look different when the fingers are extended, but as you come inward, they all start getting closer and closer to each other until, wow. That's how I teach, and I think that's why a lot of you folks like it. It's like, I can come up with something completely absurd to somebody, like whatever it could be. It could be anything from an analogy of being a midwife to an analogy of birthing Christ consciousness to and running all these things together to ancient mythology, and because they're all connected. Did I thoroughly academically study all of these? No, actually, academically, none of them. I don't have tons of books on any of those single topics. So it comes to me because my mind says I do have a goal, and it's I want to know where all the roads come together. That's not my ultimate goal. Mine's like a pyramid. When I say have a goal, mine would be, and I think yours too, would be described more as a pyramid where I want all my studies to go somewhere, but before they go just from here to the, let's say, God or Christ consciousness, I'm aware that on the way there, they all start to meld into one. So my studies go from many to one to connection, God. Now, if you asked me the goal of my topics, and you don't have to have my goal, please, you got to find yours, but mine is Christ consciousness. Obviously, if you know anything about me anyway, but it's Christ consciousness. And so I could study anything, and my mind will say, how does it go directly or indirectly to Christ consciousness? Is it congruent? And I don't find anything completely incongruent, because I always go towards how things connect. And that's just kind of a cool thing I like about the way my mind works, is it helps me connect pieces that other people often don't. Anybody, especially ego-centered people, separate. A Course in Miracles talks about that, how the ego likes to fragment things, not only because it perpetuates separation, but the ego fragments things because the more we fragment things and analyze the fragmented pieces, the more we're disconnected from the very thing we're trying to study. So it's really a brilliant strategy of the ego, but it doesn't have a good outcome. It fragments so that everything's hopeless. Fragment to where, wow, we're so far away from where we started. I don't even know how to get back. It's exactly a good analogy and description of separation from God. So next in line here, my studies. I've shared with you during certain talks. If I say everything connects, and this is important for you, whatever your goal is, but if Michael says everything connects, I guess I can study anything and it'll get me there. Oh, no. There's a more efficient route. So I could probably read bubblegum wrappers and go and find some sort of parallel to a philosophical thing, a mythological thing, a spiritual thing. Great, good for me, except there would have been probably a more efficient thing I could have read. Instead of reading 20 bubblegum wrappers and spending hours trying to figure out one common truth between them, I could just read a book with a common truth in one page. When I write books, I've had people say to me, Michael, you should do part 2 of that book. Why? I put everything I want to put in part one. Oh no, you can make more money if you do a continuation, a part two, an extension. If I say there's a 5-step healing process, I've had these big authors tell me, oh no, now you got to do like a 6th one, like a new one came to you. If a new one came to me, why didn't I get it with the other ones? That's what I would say. Think about this is the way Michael works, just so you know his brain. What? How am I going to tell them? First of all, that's lying. Second of all, if I'm so brilliant, then why did my 6th idea not come when I had the first 5? This is kind of my playful way of saying it. Like, yeah, I mean, if I want these people to respect and buy my books, shouldn't I deliver everything I can instead of going, well, this is part of the truth, and hopefully I won't die before I give you the rest of the steps, because then it's all worthless, like it's just nuts. So no, 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 no. I want it to be complete. If I can't have it complete, I won't write it. I wrote 12 steps, the concepts of A Course in Miracles. I could write another. Here's the 13th concept. I don't know that I would or could ever write such a book. I wrote 12 because there's 12. Then in the book I said, and there are some others because you could probably find, 1,200 if you really wanted to. But these are the main concepts. They tie together perfectly. They tie together nicely. Check it out. That's my attitude. And then I said, and there are some others that might not, they might be called, minor concepts or another term for them besides concepts. And so I did that. I put those in there instead of saying, let's do another book. So, and people have also, will have an experiential, the 12 steps of A Course in Miracles, concepts of A Course in Miracles, experiential, and then now it's another book. So I don't know, guys. I try to write that way. When they say you should pad pages, if one of my books is only 100 pages, oh, you should have padded it with just, some fluff there and until you have 150 pages. No, no. I don't want to be bored when I read somebody's books or book, and I don't want them to be bored if they're reading mine. I want every page, every paragraph should have something. Sometimes you use a paragraph to link two paragraphs, but when I'm writing, it's like, no, typically, that's why in my books, I make bold sentences that are really, really powerful. To me, it's hard to choose sometimes because I really go back and go, wow, this is really cool stuff. But you'll find that I make bold what you could say quotables in my book. I make them bold to stand out. But you'll find there aren't a lot of paragraphs without at least one of those bold sentences because I like it to be rich and powerful. And I know a lot of folks email and say, wow, it's really, some people are really, really brilliant. They're bright and they go, hey man, that didn't get by me. I'm aware that line by line sometimes it's just packed. You don't read A Course in Miracles and go, yeah, I'm on page 100. I haven't seen anything good for the last 50 pages because that's Christ consciousness. It doesn't dilly-dally. Mastery doesn't dilly-dally, and mastery is sort of like my step towards Christ consciousness, my being any of us. And so you write powerfully and you also attract powerful materials. Are there studies out there? People, there's universities, spiritual universities, metaphysical universities. I really like the people at the University of Sedona. I think it's just called the University of Sedona. They might call it the Metaphysical University, but it's probably just now the University of Sedona. So you can Google that, and I would. Its founder was, I think, Dr. Leon Masters. And when I looked at his material, I always noticed clean, clear, deep, very insightful. He's passed away now, but it's in good hands, this place. And you guys, if you can remember to do so, you're welcome. Go check it out. You can take a class online. I don't think they're too expensive at all. You can take a class online, but you can also even go and get a degree. I'm not telling you that a degree in metaphysics is exactly what you know, all the corporations out there are looking for. It's not like you can walk into, I don't even know what businesses are out there, you know, IBM or Microsoft or something. You can't walk into Apple or Microsoft and say, hi, I got a degree in metaphysics at the University of Sedona, and they're going to be like, whoa, wow, wish I could have done that when, you know, I was younger. Good job. And then you're hired. You can be VP, you know, of all things. This world doesn't necessarily support that, but what can such a degree do for you? First of all, for you, it can become insightful for you, just insightful. But one value of this place that I'm describing, or any spiritual university, but I would be careful. Some are more like psychic schools, and some are just more like shallow, you know, watered down. This one I know to be good, but you know, and this one's a little. There's another degree you can get. You know, some people call it parapsychology or transpersonal psychology. That starts getting a little more academic. It's a little more dry, and I never found that to be favorable. I've had schools ask me if I wanted to participate with their teachings and their curriculums, and it's like, wow, you know, it's kind of a intellectual's version of metaphysics, where metaphysics has a little more feminine vibe to it. It's more open instead of kind of, it's the visuals that come to me like a brittle dryness to the overthinking type. So that's just an aside. So what it can do for you is it helps you learn, but it also helps you learn a curriculum that's consistent instead of eclectic, overly eclectic. There's a theme to it. What's my goal? I'm getting a degree in metaphysics. Why? Because metaphysics is sort of a spiritual path, and it's not just like philosophy. Metaphysics is a bit of honoring philosophy, psychism, spirituality, personal growth, self-help, etc., etc., etc. So I think that's pretty cool. So metaphysical degree or whatever is another option. Like I said, Eastern studies and so on. Now, me personally, I don't have something you can sign up for per se. You can sign up for classes or courses, but I don't always offer like degrees. I will give some people certification if they've studied a lot, and then if they ask. And sometimes without them asking, we offer it if we just, you know that they've studied a lot. But I will certify people as ministers or sometimes chaplains and so on. But I have to know that they really understand that they have a ministry, not my ministry, their own, and that they're on a path and that's their life's work. I think it's cool. But my studies, the Michael Mirdad stuff, is not just to study Michael. You know, there's not you're not a Michaelist, you know, or something to become. It's Christ consciousness. It's Christ, you know, and Course in Miracles is part of that. There's something called God's divine plan for awakening. That's a generic term that light workers, light beings, I should say. Not all light workers know anything, you know. The term's being loosely used on the planet these days. They say that I'm the one who coined or made up that term, light worker, back in the 80s. But people are using it in forms that I never intended, unfortunately. So light beings, angels, they know that if you could interview God and you say, God, if you have a hand in anything on planet Earth at all, if you have a hand in, what is it that you have a hand in on? It really wouldn't be ball games that you bet on and ask God to help you win. It wouldn't be the things people typically think. But if there were one generic phrase, it would be humanity's awakening. That's one thing that God holds in its mind right now, is the awakening, the return home of all God's children. How could it not be a priority, right? So it's the divine plan for awakening, really. And there's all kinds of groups involved in that, some embodied and some not. There are what we call councils of light beings, higher dimensional beings, that gather to discuss how to participate in that plan. They get inspirations because they too are growing by helping humanity who's at sometimes a denser level. So you could say that there's God, you could say there's the Holy Spirit of God, you can say that there are, and I'm sort of naming these things as we descend denser and denser. God's goddess archetypes out there. Then there's angels, of course. And then there's light beings. And somewhere in that, you also have ascended masters. But then you have groups, councils of light, part of the light beings, and some of the ascended masters. You have things like the great brotherhood, sisterhood of light out there, that are participating in this. Something called Ashtar Command, if you're familiar with that, that's part of this. And ascended masters, angels, all these groups out there that are they act like a funnel to take God's light and bring it to the earth plane, to kind of infuse the earth with light to bring people home. So and that's all that matters to God. God isn't saying by all means, living in the tropics is so much better than living over in such and such. God doesn't care where you live or what color your skin or what gender or how old you are. None of these things matter. Just awakening. Just awake. That's all. Focusing on awakening. That's God's plan. So when we make our plan match God's plan, I'm just here to deal with the awakening of humanity, starting with myself, and then helping the best I can. You're now part of God's plan for awakening. You're always going to be part of God's plan, but you may not know it. So you're a conscious participant swimming with the current of God, or you're swimming against the current. It'll all work out some way, it's at some point, because even if you swim against the current and swim against the current, and swim, lifetime after lifetime, if you want to be that belligerent, there's going to be a point where you go, God, I'm just exhausted from swimming against the current. And then all of a sudden, a little light happens, near-death experience, whatever it is, that epiphany that comes to you. And you go, I'm going to get on board now. And God's going to say, well, we actually, in my plan for awakening, we're looking for someone who has a background in being a hell of a swimmer, metaphorically, who's been quite belligerent, a little attitude, a little edge, in a way, God's saying, we have an assignment perfect for you. We're going to put you, whatever, in the military, where there's not a lot of spirituality allowed and nurtured. I'm just using that, not dissing military. I'm saying that there's not a lot of that, and you're in such trauma and crisis all the time. We're going to put you there because you've got backbone. You can talk to soldiers in a way that, some peacenik couldn't. So, let's get you there. And so the plan will find a position for you when you're ready to be hired. But no matter what, even when you're not wanting to be hired, you're being trained. The easy way or the hard way, you're being trained. So there is a course we can decide what is our goal. I'm ready to be part of the divine plan. Or, no, I'm here for me. See, that's different. I'm here for me. I'm here for my kids. I'm a parent. I'm all about parenting. That's all I care about. Then that's all you'll have. Good for you. Not that you can't have more than one thing at once. I'm just saying we are, by default, always choosing our curriculum. If I'm a person who's kind of like just, lollygagging and kind of just not really interested in anything, the curriculum comes, it's nothingness. If all I want is to be prosperous and make another buck, I'll probably figure out how to be more prosperous. And in the big picture, that's a sad goal because you're so focused on just being married or just making money. They're linear things, but even those can be surrendered to be used as part of the plan if the person humbles themselves and says, here I am. When I say here I am, I get taken along, tool belt and all. My skills, my history gets taken along. You can probably hear more about that in talks that I've done on your soul's purpose, discovering your soul's purpose. So here we go with this. I don't want to just be dense human. I want to be a spiritual student. Great. Big leap upwards. But that's eclectic. Still cool. But then I'm going to go up another notch to where I'm going to sort of set a goal. What's the goal going to be? I think I'm going to make my goal wisdom or practicing love, being a healer, whatever. Figure it out. This video is being taped, or presented just a couple weeks before the new year. It doesn't matter. You can watch it in March or whatever. It's okay. But the fact that it's filmed now, that we're doing this now, um, means you can see it before the end of the year and say, I'm totally, the next year, I'm going to totally do things differently. Um, I'm going to ramp things up and set a goal and go towards that goal. Don't become obsessive with your goal. That doesn't mean you've done something wrong to, be into Eastern studies and accidentally, or be curious about some Western thing. It's okay. Um, you can be love curious. So, whatever, and study other things, curious more about love, teachings of love, or forgiveness curious, or that's fine. If that's okay, then do it. But what's cool is you set a goal and you might say, I'm into love and forgiveness, but yet I'm also going into this. And it's okay, but how far do you want to allow yourself to drift? I'm open to forgiveness and then compassion. They're a little different, but can I reconcile them? Yes, great. Then both of those are okay in my studies. Where am I going? From this wider spot towards God, directed towards God. And that goal, that beautiful outcome. And I'm aware that one of these goals in my life is to be part of God's divine plan. That's just so cool. That means I'm now officially a light worker, not just because I'm on some, mailing list that's a bogus mailing list for light workers. There's websites that are authentic about light work, and there's some that are bogus. There's some that are, just lovey-dovey and anything goes. You can have hate talk in there. And they're like, well, we want to be open to all thoughts, hate, hate, hate. And well, we just want to love everyone. No, light work doesn't mean light and dark work. It's light work, only light allowed. You want to bring darkness into the light because you want it illuminated and shining back into light, great. But we're not bringing darkness into light to dim the light. Not allowed. That's boundaries and that's focus. So decide what you're into. I'm going to say to you, for me, Christ consciousness. If you take courses with me, I might teach on dreams. I might teach on romance or affection and intimacy in relationships. I'm still going to be talking about Christ consciousness. The words, though, might be different. Like I say in relationships, and in intimacy, there's got to be a sense of love and respect. See, that's really my way of using humanistic, psychological, romantic relationship terminology for Christ consciousness. Because the ultimate love and respect is Christ consciousness. The Christ in me honoring the Christ in you, the divine in me honoring the divine in you. It's going to be God. It can't just be my human self kind of loves you and respects you. From a human standpoint, it's not the ultimate. And I can't really settle for less than ultimate. I like going for it, So, your goal, Christ consciousness, then read books like, take courses like the ones I do if you want, or if somebody like it, similar, there are teachers, colleagues, friends, love them. Like, some of them, I'll just say without naming them, some of them, wonderful teachers, good integrity, but they're not real Christy. They're just maybe about empowerment or things like that. And I think that's great, but just not Christy. I have to say, someone like Alan Cohen, a bit more into Christ consciousness. He doesn't like dilly-dally and settle for lesser. He really loves that kind of vibe. So some books, some teachings, I would read Jesus Calling. It's dissed by a lot of fundamental Christians because it's channeled, seemingly. She channeled what? She's saying, Jesus guided me in writing these almost like Course in Miracles workbook lessons, one for every day of the year. And here's one, and then it might be like, it's all like the voice of Jesus. And one might be saying something like, Beloved, when you become afraid, then you're lacking faith in me. Because if you truly know me, who I am and what I'm about, and focus on me, how could you really become afraid? You would know that I'm going to bring light and healing and love to every outcome. Things like that. It's like, wow, that's just perfect for me to read today. And she includes, the author, a little quote with each of these channeled, Christ messages, biblical support, like quote, or a few of them sometimes. But somehow, see what happens is in the fundamental groups, if it wasn't one of their own people that channeled it or wrote it or whatever, they'll call it evil. It's just what they do in fundamental groups, traditions, religions, churches, etc. And it just made way too much, it had way too much fame to it, so they just didn't like it. It's like Joel Osteen is a very Christ consciousness teacher that you might want to watch to feed your soul. But he's too successful for other televangelists, so they diss him. Well, let them diss him, because they're already living in the hell that they tell everybody that they're going to go to if they don't convert to their church. So here's the thing. If you want to know the path to Christ consciousness, you feel it. And you'll feel a similarity between Jesus Calling, God Calling, another good book, A Course in Miracles, and other similar books. Some I don't discuss or promote because sometimes the authors have gone a little off their rocker, a little too much into ego and so forth. And so as a person who feels a bit responsible, wanting to be responsible, it doesn't feel right to sort of say, you guys ought to read this material, this book, this teaching, if some of the foundation, like the author, is off too much into ego, because it just feels kind of weird. So I don't like to do that. It feels incongruent, really. So the ones I do talk about, you can kind of count on. Even if you've heard me talk about something 10 years ago and I don't talk about it today, it's because I've seen something that I say, oh, no, no thanks. But like I said, look for the themes. I might look different. I might sound different than Joel Osteen. But if I were listening to Michael Mirdad or Joel Osteen, if I were reading A Course in Miracles, there's a vibe that's similar. When I do my Christ Consciousness Intensive every Thanksgiving week, for 4 days intensive, I, like, for example, we just did this recently, and I was reading one morning, everybody closed their eyes, and I gave them like a little, almost a meditation. And I was reading quotes, inspirational quotes, and I would read from God Calling, then I would ad-lib for a few minutes, then it would be Jesus Calling, then I would ad-lib, then A Course in Miracles. They could not tell the difference between them. And I didn't pick material that would fool them. I just went here and went there, and they couldn't tell the difference, because that's Christ consciousness. There might be slight variations, Joel Osteen, he's got a very different kind of expression. His little accent and how's everyone, and his big smile, and I just think it's cool. It's such light in the dude. I just think it's cool, but totally, totally different. He's probably not irreverent like I can be at times. But you listen to him and you go, wow, what is that? It's light, it's love, it's clear. Clear meaning almost like simple, but not simplistic, but clear, simple. It's not overly heady. It's not confusing people. So there needs to be that clear vibe, and it has to be inspiring. How could it be God if it doesn't have clarity and inspiration to it? So I feel hope. I feel inspired when I listen to or read Christ consciousness. That's what it's supposed to be doing, because Christ consciousness is a frequency, it's a vibe. It's not just intellectual or material or whatever. It's not like, oh, that's an interesting book. It doesn't make you go, and let me think about that, and oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's not something that just gives you something to chew on. Even that's nice, but it's not just that. There's a frequency you feel. Wow, that was so clear. Whoa, that was simple. Wow, that answered a lot of questions. Those kinds of boom, boom, epiphanies and ahas. And sometimes, it brings you to tears because being held in the arms of God, Christ, is very wowing. There's times when I've talked to you guys and I just talk about something about the life of Jesus and I'm remembering those moments and the feeling and I describe it and tears come to my eyes because there's such beauty to it. Then there's times, a couple times over the years, that tears come to my eyes. Maybe a personal pain that just popped up, but sometimes it's also feeling the waves of pain that people go through, the struggles people have had, and it's just sometimes, really just hits. But it doesn't mean it's not Christ because it's not uplifting, because the truth is, Jesus cries when Mary Magdalene cries when her brother passed away and she was overwhelmed. So he cries with her. So Christ can cry, but the goal is not to commiserate. The goal, because it's Christ, it's different. It cries, but it cries because it's compassion for people. But secretly, those tears are, and guess what? There is something great called, for example, resurrecting Lazarus from the dead. The goal is not the death or the tears. The goal is the good news of where we're going with this. And that's why a lot of us teachers into Christ consciousness can be really confident, because we know there's something great at the end of the day. So if you haven't heard something that I'm trying to convey, let me say it just once more. Hone in on where you're going, and then the curriculum will fall into place. And make sure it does. Don't say you want to go here and then just go horizontal and eclectic again. If you want to go there, then go there. Then study it. If you say, I want to study religions, then get some books on each religion, more than one view of each religion, and study them. Whether it's academically, whether it's intellectually, you're just studying them on your own, or whether you do it in a way of saying, I want to see how they merge, then go and do it well. If you say, you know what? I don't want words and words and books. I want this feeling. Watch. You can pay for some. You can get some for free. Material on Christ consciousness. Lectures I've done. Books I've written. I hope to do a series of books sometime soon on Christ consciousness. But, that would take time. And for that, it would take a lot of money. Not a lot like millions, but it would take a lot of money to pay my hours to be filled with writing and editing, because it takes a lot to write and edit books. It really does. In some ways it's easy because it sort of channels through. That part's easy, although it takes time. The editing and blending and fixing all that, and then the book design fees and the publishing fees and all that, it's really up there. So I hope to do that, but whatever, I'm open either way. But Christ consciousness, the material's there. Lots of mine. You can buy or rent the New Testament DVD sets and get all kinds of cool insights there. And you can also watch lots and lots that I've done for free. All of my Sunday services are free. People can donate for the services or for the videos if they want, but there's a lot of free material. 50 something of them. It was one Sunday every week of every year, and then times how many years have we been filming them? Technically, on Facebook Live, probably 3 years, is it? Every Sunday. So you're talking a couple hundred almost videos, Sundays alone. Then there's Fridays. So you double the number because every Friday of the year. It's not like I take some days off. This is what I do. So decide what you're looking for, and I'm not saying it has to be the same as mine, but do decide. And I'm not saying you only have to have one, but decide something in your life. Don't say you want a wonderful, loving relationship and stay in a conflicting one. Don't say you want to study wisdom and then study something less without naming something specific. Don't say you want to master a certain thing and never practice it. Please sit at the end of this talk and just 5 minutes even, ask yourself at least, where is it I would like to go? At the end of this life, just pretend right now, just this life. At the end of this life, what would I like to have thought I accomplished in consciousness. Just watching Friends, on TV, one of those terrible shows, or just, like, come on, is that all you got, all you want? Watching sitcoms or whatever they call them. Like, give me a break. Do you want something more? And if that's all you want, that's fine. You're going to come back again and again and again and again, watching reruns of those shows, lifetime after lifetime, until one day you go, this just doesn't fill me. But check it out. What do I really want in this lifetime? What consciousness would I like to depart with? And whatever it is, 1, there's absorbing it. 2, sharing it. That completes the cycle. How can I absorb it, meaning learn it, study it, and how can I bring it forward? Not as a preacher, not necessarily as a teacher or an author. How do I bring it forward just to people in general? And we're going to talk soon. We're going to do, in January, the Co-Creating a New Life course. That's going to be a 1-day workshop. Typically in the years past, we did it as a 4-week course. It was 4 Wednesdays. We're going to do it as one afternoon, condense it to several hours, so please join us. But in that, we're going to talk about how to take your ministry, your life, to a new level. So I pray this has made good sense and that you can put it into application. Where would you like to go? If Christ consciousness, I named some books, some teachers, some studies. Feed the thing that you're saying you want to go to. If it's Christ consciousness, feed your soul focused on Christ consciousness. If it's Eastern wisdom, feed your soul with Eastern wisdom, because that is what your soul is resonating with. Find what your goal is and do something. Commit. Go somewhere. Metaphysical studies, I think it's beautiful. Because you can study metaphysics and Christ consciousness at the same time. How could you not? They could tie together. You can also only do metaphysics and psychism and never go somewhere else, like to Christ consciousness. I'm not equating metaphysics with psychism. Those are kind of two split things, but they overlap. You can say, I only want to know psychic stuff. I just want to be a tarot reader and see auras, and that's it. Good for you. Okay. Fair enough. You can do that and Christ consciousness. You can do that and Eastern studies. But figure out what you're going to do and not just stay horizontal. Step up. Own that you're something really unique. And realize, hopefully, you will absolutely come to the day, the point in your life where you say, not just me. There's a saying from St. Francis, more of thee and less of me. That sort of means I'm sort of segueing out of the me with my little ideas, and I'm ready. Okay, I'm a little scared, but I'm ready. And you come out more and more, and pretty soon the scare dissipates, and you're like, I'm excited and ready. And then pretty soon, man, I am committed and ready. And it rises and rises and rises, and you realize, wow, this is so cool. I'm studying God, just going home. So you commit to great studies that take you in that direction. Alrighty. If you'd like to, you can join us. We have a couple of great things coming up. We have a free talk this coming week, Wednesday, and that is, we're starting our course, actually. I apologize. In a couple of weeks, we're starting our Wednesday night course, and it's every Wednesday throughout the whole year. I swear this is just so bizarre that we're doing this, because it takes a lot to do, every Wednesday throughout the year. But we've done a free intro. You can still watch that, the free intro to this course that we're going to be doing. It's a course in spiritual awakening, but it's focused really a lot on A Course in Miracles. But it's not exclusively that, because A Course in Miracles is one, like in an umbrella. It's one of those spokes that holds the umbrella together. Course in Miracles and, your Jesus calling, and there's several others. Not necessarily hundreds of others. There's a handful of things that God had made it present, has made present for us to be our high curriculum home. Some things are secondary and so on, less directly connecting to God, to spirit. Some things more directly. I just like the direct stuff. So we're going to be going really, really into this study. If you feel you're ready to launch to another level, let's do it. Just join us. God bless you all. Please make sure you make a new commitment and a leap forward into your ultimate goal. Thank you. Bye-bye.